All right, so I'm listening to a recording from 1931 dealing with a person who was owned by Jefferson Davis, who was the leader of the Confederacy, president, I should say. And the person making the video is a light-skinned black, but they're light-skinned. So, a question I've always had, because I've always ever seen this, or really only have ever seen it talked about by people who are not of darker complexion. Why does it seem to be, from what I've seen, that a lot of the people talking about these sorts of historical references and historical, I was going to say neediness, but historical importance are always people who are not dark? It's probably a really weird question to ask, but I think it's something that I've noticed throughout my time kind of reading and watching videos of people who write about these sorts of endeavors through history. Whether or not that's a decent question to ask, I don't fucking know, but it is an interesting one. I've noticed it in real life too. The people who are most outspoken and most passionate about things dealing with slavery or things of that sort are usually the lightest complexion of people. It kind of goes into the idea of, I've noticed this when I was in grad school. I didn't know people who went to grad school were normally well off. I had no idea. I just thought it was another step in school. But pretty much everybody that I had met in grad school comes from a two-person household that makes a significant amount of money. Just as most households do that have two parents in the United States and who are able to send their child off to grad school or whatever. It's always the ones who have maybe not a lot of money themselves, but come from a decent amount of money, who are the most outspoken people speaking about poor people, poor issues, poverty, and things of that sort. They also go into these fields where they're trying to help impoverished individuals, whether it be social work or I don't know any other master's degrees that do that. But normally social work, mostly social work. It's kind of that whole same thing where it's like the lightest people talk about the darkest issues in relation to being a Black American, when in reality those same light people are going to be, from the stereotype, not the ones who are going to be working as hard in the field. And then the ones who are normally come from less completely non-impoverished backgrounds end up getting degrees in these fields that would deal with impoverished people. I don't know if it's guilt, which I feel some of it might be, even on the level of wealth guilt, like, oh, I owe it to myself and my family history to give back to people or whatever. And then maybe it's the idea of like, oh, because I am of lighter skin, I should put more effort into proving that I help people who are also like me, by researching historical, all these other things. Now, in the grand scheme of all of this, it doesn't matter, because as long as you're doing something that you feel is important to whatever your life is, I think that's great. But it's just a sociological question of something that I've noticed throughout my years. Just like how when I was a kid, I realized that in almost every commercial or every TV show, there was always at least one Black person, but like everybody else wasn't. Yeah, I don't know. It felt like I continued to see it, and it felt like an obligation because it was a continued pattern of like, why is it always just this one? It never really bothered me. It was always just a question I had. But there we go. And to give a little background onto me, because I'm talking about other people who went to grad school, and talking about how they're generally come from less impoverished, if not wealthy, six-figure backgrounds, I don't know. People put too much emphasis on six figures. Anyway, I did not grow up in the same circumstances as a majority of the people that I went to school with. In fact, none of them. A lot of them, some of them were immigrants. I'm going to say one of them that I know of was an actual immigrant. And then the rest were Americans, two parents, one household. They had one small town, or maybe not a small town, but one town that they grew up in that they identify with. And all these different things. So, I don't know. I was not like that. I did not have that. Did I wish I had that? Of course I did. But unfortunately, we are where we are, and that's what we are doing. So that's it. That's all I got. Other than that, I'm going to continue cleaning. Goodbye.